All right. Thank you for watching my live stream. I notice I don't have anybody in the room with me at this immediate moment. That's okay. I kind of didn't expect it. But well, someone's in here now, at least for now. Hello to whoever that is. But to anybody who watched it later, you're free to notice. All right, so I call this the state of the channel right now. So the real humorous thing about what's going on here, oh, I got 6 people. Wow, people are actually interested today. This is different. I haven't seen as many people since the first time I ever did a live stream. Hello, everybody, and feel free to ask me any questions in the chat. And they're all gone now. Whatever. Anyways, um, so the reason I decided to do this is because about it was early last week. I was having last week I was trying to do episode 34, and kind of got frustrated. And now I kind of figured out what it was that we were doing. Plus, the other thing I want to talk about is the why I kind of took one more day, and I was trying to make up for time. I was trying to make up for lost time here by making 2 videos and bringing them out one by one. You know, so what I did was what happened to me was it was actually the weekend of Valentine's Day and President's Day. I was out doing Uber and can't and so my previous car is a 2020 Kia Niro, and it had 209,642 miles on it when the transmission decided to die late morning on the 14th. I could hear it coming. I mean, I backed out of a spot a number of days ago and I heard a bonk. I was like, what the fuck was that? And I said to myself, okay, I don't know what that is, but maybe it's, yeah, little I know that was actually the transmission getting ready to take a shit, basically. So, but and then I had another passenger, and I was just about ready to. I was actually, it was late morning, so I was looking into possibly if anybody does Uber or even Lyft or any rideshare companies, if you're outside of the United States or Canada, there's like a destination mode most likely, and that destination mode allows you to try to get a ride that takes you home, so you're not deadheading at home. Which for the uninitiated, deadhead is kind of I think it's like a transportation term for driving an empty vehicle. I learned it when I my failed attempt to drive truck. It's basically here's a vehicle. Here's the truck, the tractor, and the trailer has nothing in it. You're just driving an empty trailer. That's called deadheading it. In trucking, if you drive just with the cab, that's bobtailing. But so I believe in livery of any kind, like transportation. Deadhead means driving somewhere without anything. So that's an attempt to not deadhead at home. Well, unfortunately, here I am. I don't know how far away I was from my passenger's destination, but I had to pull off the road because as I turned onto a road, the I could hear another little bonk. Apparently, I didn't realize it yet, but it was from the transmission. And then as I was, driving and accelerating, was like at some point I heard a ring, like, like you're revving the engine or you're out of gear, especially if you have the clutch down. If you're pushing the clutch. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem right. And then probably 5 to 10 seconds later, an alert came on my screen that said, "T- transmission too hot, pull over safely." I'm like, uh-oh. So I pulled over as fast as I could in front of a house off a major road, and then I told my pastor, "I'm sorry. We're gonna have to, I have to end this ride. Something went wrong." And called my, I called the garage that I usually go to, and then of course I called, you know, roadside assistance. So here. Here I am stuck for like 2 hours waiting for a tow truck, talking to a friend too, and wondering if this transmission was salvageable. I did take it there. They did call me and they told me that the transmission was basically dead. Now I have a now I have an extended warranty, but I'm going to be honest with you folks. I don't know what to say about all these extended warranty companies, but I'm beginning to believe that endurance is a joke. The funny part is my Scion XA that I own, my secondary car, has an extended warranty that's 2 years, no matter how unlimited miles, but it's within basically with endurance. So we don't know where that's going to go or how much is that going to be, how well that's going to go in my future. Who knows? But back to my normal car. So I had to wait until Monday to uh to call Endurance and find out if I have if they're going to cover this. I said, "Yeah, you're going to cover the transmission, right?" And they're like, "Well, it depends. I mean, what broke, how it broke, how you've taken care of it, da, 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 da," and everything that basically said, "Why don't you just come around and say you're going to find a reason not to cover the damn transmission?" And even then, it wasn't going to be able to be done until Thursday. I don't have time to play around because I do Uber and Lyft on the side beside my full time job, and so I just said, and just before that Monday on Sunday, I actually went over to a Kia dealer and was just taking a look at things. I think I went to a Honda dealer too, because I was considering a Honda Civic. And I didn't actually test drive the Honda Civic, but I did go and take a look at a third Kia Niro, which I now own. I own a 2025 now. And I wasn't certain what was going to happen, but as soon as I heard what they were gonna do, what the insurance or the warranty company was gonna pull, I'm like, "You know what? I'm not playing anymore. I don't have time for this. I'm not waiting until Thursday to have them rip my transmission to shreds, have them deny it, and then be stuck either paying the company not only to have taken the garage not only to have taken it apart, but to put it all back together." At that point, I think I would just paid them for tearing it apart, and I would have probably just said, "Put all the parts in the back and let me just tow it over there. It's not gonna be any much of a difference." So now I have a new car. But that's the reason I kinda didn't even get around to making a video that week. And really, I think I had a good theme. In retrospect, I probably had a good theme for that day. I could have done one on Bert with and love, because there's like 3 things out there that I liked about Bert talking about love. There's a song he does. Well, it's 3 songs he does. "I Wanna Hold Your Ear," "That's Love," and then Bert's love song. The last one I actually really enjoy, and if I ever do get to that part in my life, I probably will. I'll explain myself, because Bert's love song was one of those songs I actually sang to myself, like, a lot in the 3rd grade. Not loudly, but, like, just to myself, you know? So, where am I at speaking of that, since we're on that, where am I on the state of the channel? So, I think I just found out one thing. This whole time, I've been buying separate microphones. Because if you can see episode 25 through now, I've had a microphone clipped to, run up my shirt and clipped to the collar. But I think I just found out that none of the microphones I've ever bought and plugged in were even working. And I had always been using the microphone that I'm using right now, which is the one built into my computer, and the camera's up there. That's why you see me looking up. I look up at the camera like this and down at myself on the screen. So, but you know what I'm doing. It's like a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting at work. I mean, where if any, I mean, I'm talking mainly to anybody who clips on this later. I mean, And yeah, I know it's March 1st. I didn't change the calendar over there. By the way, as I should be promising, happy birthday to my friend Rob, who turns 51 today, March 1st, 2026. He's the one I actually mentioned in the Sesame Street Fever episode, number 26, where I had the disco version of Rubber Ducky as a um, an MP3 that was in my collection before I somehow downloaded the rest of them and put it together as like the one album. But I always thought it was pretty hilarious when, I put it on, I covered, I did what I could to cover the name of the song. And then as you've heard the Sesame Street Fever version of Rubber Ducky, it has that cool drum beat, the build up, the violins, and then finally the girl saying Rubber Ducky, you're the one. And he's going, and then he froze when he realized what he was here, the lyrics he was hearing. I mean, I'm just repeating what I talked about in that episode. But speaking of that episode, it was just see, I don't know how the whole YouTube algorithm works anymore because this doesn't like I said, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, for the first 20, literally 25 episodes, I get views up the yin yang. I mean, not really up the yin yang. It's not like I got a million views of a video. I'm still at 514 for episode 10, the first TV versus audio I did for I Love a March. Still kind of stuck there, and it's still my most viewed video. But the view count for everything all the way up to no, episode 25, which was the longest one where we all watched Christmas Eve on Sesame Street together. Ever since then, it's like I'm not getting any views whatsoever. No, and I can't say any views. That's a pet peeve of mine when people say nobody or everybody. Nobody's doing something or everybody's doing something. Yeah, it might be close to one or the other, but it's never nobody. Nobody is zero. We're all in this entire world doing it. That's the only way I can describe everybody. It doesn't even work for there's an skit, and I know we all seen it because I might do an episode down the road on um, videos with Casey Kasem's voice in it. And there's at least three of them. There's the fly complaining about a fly and a frog and claiming a fly is handsome and a frog's fat and ugly. And even as a kid, I beg to differ. I think we all did. We all saw flies like, yeah, try to hit it, it flies away. So that's why you got to get a fly swatter. There was the one, elephant, eat, eagle. And then he said E is the first letter in the word everybody, and they show like a bunch of people going by. But I mean, in a way, it does kind of feel like everybody, but it wasn't really everybody, but we get the point. And I think the third one was the B one where he does like, he shows like a banjo, bananas, which have to be the weirdest looking banana bunch I've ever seen in my life. Even as a kid, like, those are bananas? I know a banana when I see one. But it's Casey Kasem, but that was one I was thinking of doing down the road. Um, so the one thing what happened was is in the middle of recording episode 34, which if I get back to this, I'm probably gonna have to re-record at least the live version, the here in the studio version. If you want to call this a studio, this is my office. You've seen it before, and it's messed up form. And then when I'm like this, and the door and both doors are shut, and it's kind of like narrowed down to like this, to look proper, like, showing you the collection here, which hasn't really moved. I mean, I do change that one album, trying to move my finger in such a way that I'm pointing right at it. It's like asking it's like when my seventh grade science teacher used to have one of the girls in the class, Shannon, could you point your finger up, and then you see the shadow point where he wants it to when he's doing like film strip slides. It was kind of cool. But I'm sitting here trying to point at it. Okay, so it's this. There's a whole group of albums, and I swap through them like for a certain album. And then I have these shirts, as you may notice. I wish I was sitting back far enough that I could show you, like, this just shows Raised on the Street, you know? You buy these shirts at J.C. Penney for goodness sakes, but nothing's really changed over here, except there's something that I had the 10th anniversary album, that album right there, when I was a kid, and unless, like, a later versions came out with them, what came with this is actually pretty cool, and I'd like to put them up there on the wall. Now, of course, you guys have laughed when you watch, like, older State of the Channels that I had some, this hentai girl up there, which now the pictures are down there because this is for, but I've been wanting to put these pictures up that apparently come these signed black and white photos of some of the Muppets. Now I'm looking down because they're down here and all framed. Some of the Muppets and the humans, and I didn't know I had them. And if I did have them, knowing me, I probably would have begged my mother to frame them or something. I don't know. Nah, she probably wouldn't have bought any photo. She probably wouldn't have bought any frames for me, even cheap ones. I don't know. I mean, I'll give you an idea of what I got here. Like Snuffily Yours, Snuffleupagus. And of course, this is Snuffy 2.0, Snuffy 1.0, or the beta Snuffy is the scariest looking effed up thing that ever existed, you know? And now you can see my computer and me doing this again. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. To you from Grover. Oh, Grover, probably one of the coolest. Lots of birdseed and love from Big Bird. I'll tell you what, though, so far, all the letters I ever wrote to Sesame Street and had them just send me the generic thing saying we're too busy to answer any letters, and the closest I came to a personal one was they wrote, Bert and Ernie enjoyed their scenes. I know I brought that up before. Let's see. Hi, ho, Kermit Frog here. If that sounded good, thank you. Let me know. If not, it's just how I sound in my own head. On my boys, Bert and Ernie. Hi from Bert and Ernie. And then you got a really weird combo, the Count and Oscar. Well, if one of my channels, if episode 33, I think it is any indication, these two can be jerks. And I think now I got the humans, Susan and Bob. I always thought this was kind of a weird combo of the two of them. I don't know why, but they have been together on a few occasions. There's the Midas Touch videos that are out that there's not videos, but Midas Touch scenes from Sesame Street where one of them was Cookie Monster, wishing that he could touch something and turn it into cookies. And then Oscar had another one where had the one where he wished he could turn everything into trash. These two were in the cookie one, and he accidentally touched them both, and then they were both piles of cookies. The original young love couple here, David and Maria. I'm going to actually tilt this so it doesn't pick up on the screen because these two were supposed to be a thing, okay? But then David had his problems and he couldn't, and they wrote him off, and then Maria just got with Luis. This would have been kind of cool because this is kind of a this is sort of an interracial dating here because David's black and Maria's Puerto Rican. But then they just decided to put the two Puerto Ricans together, Luis and Maria, and there it was. Speaking of Luis, here's the man and Mr. Hooper. And these are two that can rest in peace because, Emilio Delgado, who played Luis, passed away about 5 years ago, I think. And we all know Mr. Hooper was the first of the human cast to pass away back in 1982 from cancer, and they had to make the infamous episode to try to explain that, you know, humans die when they get old for whatever reason. The touchiest thing in the world, I would swear, when it comes to talking to children, you know. And here's a cat. Yeah, how you doing? Meow. You've seen him from the cats video where I think I explained it 7 times. I had to bring him back in here to try to film the last of it, but, we all know that there was issues with the microphone, and I finally just kinda cut it off in the middle and re-videoed because I was tired of I'm sure he was just as tired of me going out and getting him and shooting the part. I will let him go. Oh, stop. Alright, and these are 2 peas in a pod in a sense. Hairy Monster and Cookie Monster. How do they have this? There we go. In a sense, it's this way because Harry will often eat unedible stuff or edible stuff with Cookie. There's the M skit where they were thinking of food that starts with the letter M, all the way even as weird as as Cookie saying mustard. I'm like, I mean, when I heard that at first, I'm like, just eating mustard? Ugh, even I didn't do that. I was one of those few kids that actually liked mustard, you know, because you taste it, and it kind of has that weird, you know, feeling to it, but you're kind of like, I like this. And then later on, you watch Dumb and Dumber, where they're like squirting ketchup in their mouths to try to get rid of the spiciness of food. But these two, that M skit, you might have to look it up, or maybe I'll do a video on it later. And then there was the Sesame Street Little Theater doing the flower where not Bert was the flower. He comes out, and then when the play was over, because I remember as a kid, you know, Bert coming out of the flower pot like a flower, and then them eating him or eating his costume or something. And I go, why? That's one of those things where, like, in the days of me watching when I was a kid, I started to finally like understand a lot of what the skits were about. I think there was like 3 of them. This was one of them. The flower, the Let's Grow a Flower video or play. There was the 3 knocks with the gangsters and Lefty all scared and such. I understood it, but I didn't understand like really what happened, what it made him run away and scared, and the guys trying to go, come on, let us in. And then there was Rapunzel, which I really didn't understand. I remember watching Rapunzel and this the woman with long blonde hair, and then she lets it down, and then all the hair falls off her head. And then I started to understand that the prince was asking her to let down her hair, and I'm going, why would you want to do that? And then I later figured out that Rapunzel was about, she's locked in a tower, but she's got such long hair that she lets her hair down so he could climb it like a freaking rope, climbing a wall with a rope like you're in like an obstacle course in the military, or climbing the rope when you're a kid in school, you know? Although I always said she'd have to like anchor it down somewhere because an average sized human being climbing up a woman's braid, she ain't gonna be able to hold him up. And that, guys, and but I believe that's how it happened. But that was really funny when the hair fell down. She goes, "Well, now what are we gonna do?" And he's kind of like, "I don't know." Anyways, the flower one was I was wondering why they were eating them, and then finally Ernie at the end of the play was going, "Well, how'd you make this? How'd you make all the leaves?" And Bert said, "Oh, there's their lettuce leaves," and and freaking Cookie Monster's like, "Look at this, lettuce leaves," and then they start just tearing apart his uniform and eating it and running him out and running him back to the dressing room. So messed up. But enough about this. What are you doing? Let's see. We got a couple more here. We got Gordon, and this is Gordon 3.0. This is Hal Miller because the original one was Roscoe Orman, and then no. Matt Robinson was the original Gordon. Second one was Roscoe Orman, which was like a completely different person. But this is the Gordon we all remember for real. And then Olivia, Elena Reed, which if you grew up watching sitcoms in the 80s also know that she got out of her Sesame Street persona and played, I don't know who she played, but she was on 227. And that actually drew me to watching 227. If I didn't say this before, that drew me to watching 227. What? A Sesame what Olivia's on? What? Turn this on. That was pretty cool. Although I always said that technically Gordon and Susan should have been together in a picture instead of like say Gordon and Olivia. Maybe Olivia should have been with Bob. I don't, or who knows? Because we all know Bob was boning Linda, the deaf one. But anyways, and finally, unfortunately, this one got a little bit nicked. The whole cast, or most of it. All the humans. You got Bert and Ernie, Oscar, the Count, Cookie. There's Grover up there, Big Bird. We all know Big Bird, and of course Snuffy's nowhere to be found because he's imaginary. He was imaginary until 1985. But at some point, those will go up on the wall. But where I was with the with episode 34 was that I got frustrated. Plus, I was probably making it way too fast. I mean, the last episode, episode 33, about the kids watching silent films and trying to tell the person in the, on the movie what to do or warning them. That was actually the shortest video. That was like less than 5 minutes because I mean those two videos. That's only two that exist with those kids, and there wasn't much to it. So I felt like I kind of just threw that one together. The episode 34 is supposed to be what would happen if. Now that's going to have when I finally get around to doing it again and can find out what to do about the microphone, which I'm going to get to in a second here, is I, that had four. Well, there was three of them that are cartoon. Then I was going to add a fourth one. The cartoon ones they were all little girls who were wondering what would happen if they did something, and then actually pictured like a chain reaction of stuff happening. Like the one little girl had the paper bag full of ping pong balls. She's standing on a stool, dumps them out. Ultimately, she thinks, okay, they'll dump if they'll bounce near her cat is sleeping. He'll wake up, get crazy, run away, knock down the cage with the parrot, their pet parrot, who gets out and starts saying weird stuff. Ah, please, cracker snap. I'm like, even I'm as a kid going, what's that supposed to mean? And then ultimately, in the end, lands near her mother, who blames him entirely, the cat, male or female, I don't know, blames it entirely, let's just say it, and tosses it out for the night. And then the girl thinks, I feel bad because it wasn't that cat's fault at all. And she decides not to do it because she loves her cat just like I love mine, you know. And then there's two skits where a girl wants to take a balloon and pop it and scare somebody. One's the one that seems a little bit traumatizing because she decides she's going to pop it, scare her little sister, but she could be holding a vase, get scared, drop the vase, break it, cry, tell on her. Then she gets in trouble and is sent to bed without supper, which I don't understand how parents could do that to somebody. I take after my mother. She never understood how people could possibly do that to their kids. Send them to bed with no food, no dinner, no nothing. She's like, no, the kid has to eat. you know? You can't do that. And I guess I'd take after that because I wouldn't understand it. And even the worst thing I ever saw is one time I came back from band camp. This one year at band camp? No, we're not going there. I wonder if anybody in my own band camp did that anyways. If you've seen, American Pie, you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, so where was I? Okay. I came home and it was the second year because I had my driver's license. So I got in my car and drove to Wendy's because I wanted to eat actual fast food, something, we just eaten breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the cafeteria, which was fine. It was good food, but I really I wanted to get away and get me like some Wendy's or Burger King. Well, Wendy's was on my mind, so I went and got Wendy's. I remember sitting there with a mother and her kid who probably couldn't have been more than maybe four, sitting in the chair. I don't know, he was being disruptive in such a way because I remember at one point she got in his face and was like, "You need to no, 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 no," nothing bad, but I overheard her and said, "That's it. When we get home, you're in bed for the night." And I'm looking at my watch. It's only like 6 p.m. Like, oh Lord, come on. How do you send a kid to bed so damn early? I mean, my bedtime was 9 o'clock on the week on school nights and 10 o'clock on Saturday. But, later I would actually get to stay up late or try to stay up late because a TV channel in Detroit, anybody from Detroit knows WKBD TV 50, which is right now, I don't even know what they're what if they're the affiliate of anymore? I don't even know. But they were an independent station. They were one of the charter Fox affiliates. They became a UPN affiliate when the United Paramount Network existed. I really don't know what they are now. I think they're a CW affiliate because that's Warner Bros. I don't even know what happened. These networks just whatever. Anyways, but like those channels, what that channel would have like they would like put together compilations of like skits together in like their own TV shows. Like as part of watching, like there was morning and afternoon blocks of cartoons. Maybe the Brady Bunch would be part of the block, even though it's not a cartoon. They never held the Brady Kids, which was, as far as I know, the only Brady cartoon that ever existed. And the one and only time I could be wrong. I think they did have it at one point, but I watched a preview where she says, "Sing it again, Jan," and Jan sings Figaro in the voice of the man singing Figaro. No, 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 no. No male voice coming out of not Jan, probably Cindy. It was Cindy. Either way. I'm like, no, I ain't watching this. That's scary. That freaks me out. Not happening. So I've never really watched an episode of the Brady Kids. Maybe I'll watch one down the road if I find it on YouTube. But anyways, but they would like put together these shows, like they would put other like Pink Panther cartoons together, or Porky Pig, or Bugs Bunny, and it would just be random, just any random set of like cartoon shorts. Sometimes they'd have to cut one. I remember a Popeye one that was cut, and I didn't even. And till years later, I didn't even understand how it worked. Um, but but it would cut some of it because they had to fit it into a 30-minute or 22-minute block because they got to leave room for commercials. You know how it works. But as where I'm getting to is that I found out when I woke up like in the middle of the night and nobody told me, "Get back to bed." Channel 50 was on. They were showing Three Stooges skits at like midnight. And they would do an hour-long show of these, which would be long enough to have Three Stooges skits in the commercials. Then they do a half-hour one, which would just have a Three Stooges, maybe a Looney Tunes cartoon, because that's all they could fit into it. But I really wanted to stay up to watch that. But of course, I'd watch a lot of other things. Like I'd watch the TV 50 10 o'clock news, one of the few independent channels that had its own news program. I'd watch like Sanford and Son, Benny Hill. Ooh, Benny Hill. I'm stunned. It had to be on late because some of these Benny Hill ones were the ones that showed a little more. This is an early skit of Benny Hill where they show the video of what turned out to be a young girl, like very little, sitting in one of those like British old school potties. I think when I was a kid, I thought an adult woman that went on. Hello, who came in? Um, but it turned out it was a kid, and there's no way they would have shown that today. But I was kind of like, hmm. Anyways, but Benny Hill, we all if you know Benny Hill, I mean that's yeah. But so I'd watch all that, but sometimes I would fall asleep because I couldn't stay awake long enough. And of course, my parents' wonderful ideas. Oh, let's put you in the spare room with the third television, pull out the couch, pull out the sofa bed, have you lie down. Well, eventually you're going to fall asleep. And sometimes you find yourself, you ever been one of those people that fell asleep and didn't even realize next morning, next thing you know, you're looking at the TV's on, and it says, "Good morning. This is WKBD TV 50 in Detroit." Like, I slept the whole night. Didn't even feel like it. Anyways, well, that's me going off on a tangent because I'm bad at that. Let's reel it back in. So that was the one. That was the skit. The popping balloon one where she realized that she could be sent to bed without supper. So she finally says, "Nah, screw it. Why waste a good balloon?" and walked away. Then there was the gentler one. The girl that wanted to sneak up and pop a balloon behind a boy she knew who was standing there on his skateboard holding his dog. What if I pop this balloon, scare him, and then the dog would start running and he's like, "Ah!" He's like on his skateboard. And then eventually she realizes that they show they show the thought of him crashing into a fruit cart and being severely injured. Although I don't know if the dog itself would have crashed. The dog would have ran underneath and his ass would have went splat into the side of the cart. And then she says, "I'm gonna give you this balloon." But finally the fourth one was gonna be Ernie putting Bert's favorite vase away. Because he imagines and gets a little out of hand with, okay, if I put it on the small shelf and the vase falls off and breaks, I could get tossed out of the house by Bert, or I could put it on this big enough shelf, and then he'll throw a party and overreact and give him a present. Yeah, right. Where I was getting at was, um, so I'm trying to watch the ping pong ball one, and I'm commenting, and every time I comment, you may have heard, and I know you've heard this before in some of my other videos that I'm talking, and then suddenly you can't hear me talk. It's like, yeah, I blah 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 blah. It's like it's annoying. I hate it, and I can't tell you how many times I've had to redo something as much as I can to try to fix that. And it's the same thing when I'm doing like each, segment of talking in between at the beginning and the between and at the end. You've heard me go out and there goes out, or something like that. Sometimes I just leave it because I'm tired of fighting with it. Well, here I am trying to watch the video of the ping pong ball girl. And I got so frustrated because I think I did like 4 or 5 takes of it trying to like say what I want to say in between every area. And I got so frustrated, I stopped it. I gently pulled the microphone or, this microphone out and then just started whipping it against the desk. It was like, nah! And that's when I just shut it off and walked away. I think once I get everything else under control, or maybe figure out exactly where I'm supposed to plug in a proper microphone so that when I'm talking, things don't start off where the first 2 words are that and or whatever it is. You don't hear this because I erase it as soon as I see it when I'm doing my editing. Once I get that figured out, I think I'm going to get back into this. I'm going to take those pictures. I'm going to put them up over here, so you'll see that one day. In the meantime, one thing I've been wanting to experiment with is shorts. Because when you really think about it, I mean, think of the clowns episode. Watch the clowns episode. Um, the middle one is this, these two clown skits are actually from Ringling Brothers Clowns from back then. And they have 3 clowns. One was tall, one was, they said, small, which was actually just slightly shorter than him, and then the little clown, the little, like, I midget or dwarf, whatever he is, but it's an adult clown. It's not, we probably thought it was a kid when we were children. It's kinda like seeing Tattoo on Fantasy Island going, "Hey, he's a kid." No, 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 he's an adult. Like, how's he an adult? He's a dwarf or a midget, or Villa de if you remember watching Fantasy Island. But anyways, something like that. That's like the shortest skit I think I've ever included in a full episode. But there's other skits like this that are really short that there's really no reason for me to like include in like a full proper episode. So I'd love to like comment on something that's really short. There's a few things I'd like to do. There's that Scanimate skit that da 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 da, and then it's like 4 kids, but we think it's like 12 of them because they're all the Scanimate animation makes it look like a bunch of them. I think there's 4 total because at the end they all kind of run this way. It's I'm pointing at it as if I'm watching it on television. It probably looks different. If you watch it, you'll find it on YouTube. And I was always very tickled that the last kid that's running look very much like a kid named Steve I used to go to school with. I'm like, wow, he looks like Steve. I'm not giving any last names for, privacy purposes. Sometimes I'd love to embarrass people, but I won't. Um, there's one I'd like to do, which is Harry Monster misleading us as to what the letter Z is supposed to be when it comes to sleeping. It took a lot of us until our adult years to realize that the Z is because a lot of human beings actually do closed mouth snoring, and it sounds like a Z sound. Yeah, I don't snore much. Of course, my another friend of mine, I won't name names there, would say otherwise. But there's a lot of them. There's even those like little those short skits where letter word that starts with letter, something weird happens. Letter, you know. There's bee butterfly or bee bug, the Karen looking woman with the bun in her head from back in the day. A bug comes, she sprays it, and then the bug gets a cannon and says and shoots it at her, and then she's a mess, but she's like, "It don't look too bad." So yeah, I'm spoiling a lot of what I plan on doing, but it's looking to be something I'd like to do. And maybe I'll experiment with that and see how these come up. But these are going to come up random. They'll just come out of the blue. Um, I don't know if there's going to be a schedule for as to how frequently I'm going to be bringing out new full episodes. I know that if I do episode 34, which again is the what will happen if, I'm going to have to redo that because I'm going to look completely different if I pick up where I left off. I probably have longer hair than I did. I might be able to wear the same shirt, but I'm going to have more facial hair. It's going to look like my pilot episode where I did the videos of me watching separate from the live stuff that I did. Plus, I think I was explaining way too much. I mean, I was turning that episode into some form of a public service announcement or uh, something about talking about mental illness, and I may have to just dial that back and maybe shorten that script a little once I get back around to it. Um, so if anybody's, I'm about to wind this down. So if anybody who watches this, I'd like to call April an altar because she, as I've said before, I view her as my inspiration to finally get my butt kicked in gear to give this a try. Like I said, I didn't expect to be a YouTube sensation right out the gate, although the part that's bothering me is that I'm doing worse than I did before. Because, like I said, for 25 episodes, I was getting about the appropriate amount of views that you would get for someone who has 103 subscribers, you know? But when, all your videos that you've done since, all 8 of them since then are running, you got like a total. I'm seeing a few scragglers in there, when you're barely getting any views of any of the ones before, but you're seeing people watch the older ones, which because you're getting more of them there, and you're in. your your subscriber number has been stuck basically at just over 100. And it's not like I'm trying to be less professional. As you can see, I went from having a green screen and not knowing, how to make that perfect to suddenly I have a setup, a background as I've shown you before, as I'm showing you now. And when I do the videos, I don't know how I did it, but I got it like locked into an actual, you know, a fixed screen, and I can actually just move the video around. So I'll do the video like straight on, but then I will move it over so that like, as I was saying before, like over here would be like basically the door jamb about the end of where my hand starts, the palm of my hand starts right there, all the way to about here, where I'm hiding out much of what you see, you know? And it's supposed to look the way it should look, you know. Oh, and the doors are closed, of course. But it's just a weird feeling. It's kind of like, I mean, when I first when I did the Sesame Street Fever video, I first thought, what, nobody wants to just listen to us me comment on a couple of songs? I did ear I did earlier with I Love a March, where I played the song from the album and then I played the video. And that's my most viewed video, like I said, to this day. But it's like I thought maybe it was just nobody really wanted to watch that. And then when I did the next episode, I was getting the numbers exactly the same, you know? I mean, it's nothing like also the Waiter Grover throws a fit video where, that's the only video that when I watched it at the time it dropped, I actually saw the view count go up. That was the only time. Like someone who has it's very popular, has hundreds of tens, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, very popular. As soon as a video comes out and while you're watching, you can see that number count going up and up and up very quickly. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm not letting this die because sometimes that happens with me where sometimes you hit a moment in your life where, okay, it's not working right now, but don't panic. Did that when I was doing rideshare. I mean, when I did Lyft, and I no longer do Lyft. I don't know if I ever said that because I haven't done a live stream in a while. But I got kicked off the Lyft platform for BS reasons. But in the end, I realized that I was basically wasting my time on that platform, as much as I tried to believe I wasn't. So now I'm just an Uber driver, and I'm happy with it. So, anyways, I got scared. My rating got so low, it actually dropped to just under the deactivation world back in like 2015. And I went, "Oh, uh-oh," but I bounced right out, and even then, I was ready to just concede that I was no longer gonna be a Lyft driver. Well, I was a Lyft driver for a while, but, you know, I you know, just before the pandemic, I hit 5.0, no problems, and then near the end, I get 2 safety violation complaints in, like, 3 or 4 months, and that's it. I'm off the platform even though I'm a 5.0 driver, and it made no sense to me whatsoever. But I wasn't even that hurt when it happened. When I realized it, I'm like, "You know what? I can't tell you there's, like, at least 3 times where I realized I was doing better with Uber anyways, and it happens to the best of us." But anyways, enough about that. But I bounced out a bit, and things were fine. I have had a lot of things where I started off a little shaky, but then I got the hang of it, I got things going, and, it started to rock. Now I have no clue if somehow the YouTube algorithm decided, "Oh, you have a different opening, you use a different font, you use different music, you have a different setting." I'm like, I view it as called progressing. It looks a lot better than me standing behind a green screen because I had no idea what because of everything that's behind here, including what used to be right there, you know? And it was just weird that outside the Christmas Eve on Sesame Street video, I've gotten very little. I'm not gonna whine, I'm not gonna beg and plead for everybody to watch my channels. I mean, it's like owning a business, you can't make people just come in and buy something. I can't make people watch my videos, you know? They're here if it's something you like. That's why I always say, if it's something you like, share, and subscribe. We all say it. But one person I wanted to give a shout out to because I was talking to him about it briefly is Ben Minot of On the Archive, one of my favorite YouTube channels that I love watching. Cult following type of channel. He's got like just over 50,000 views. So mm, he's still quite a ways away from, I think, having the silver YouTube award. But I asked him, I said, how long did it take you to get things going? He said, well, I didn't start making money until like 2 years later, and it didn't start becoming a tax issue until like 3 years later after that. Something like that. And he said he doesn't, the algorithm's gotten so screwy with YouTube that it's like, how is it that anybody can even make money anymore? It's not like it used to be. I mean, he's been on YouTube since 2012, and I discovered him during the pandemic. It was either during or sometime before the pandemic, because for some reason, I know I've talked about this before, but I used to look at RC. I was looking up videos on RCA video Select Division video discs, the CED discs that were in the early '80s and didn't really last, and it turned out he had a YouTube channel on it, and I don't know. I saw a couple other episodes of his, and I said, "This guy's interesting. Let's watch all of his videos." And I'm not only a cult follower, I'm one of his cult followings. I also uh, contribute to his Patreon under. I used to be I used to contribute under my own name, but then I pulled it and I created a Patreon account that I have yet to like have people subscribe to. But I'm using it as right now. I'm part of his thanks to the Patreon donors. I mean, there's like a riddle wrapped in an riddle with a question mark wrapped in an enigma or something like that. It's the first one, and then Ahjnot, the Sesame Street commentators right next to him. So I'm right at the top. Hasn't helped, but my name's out there, so it's not like it's not out there. It's just, and then the social media part's been a mess. I mean, I'm getting followers who just happen to be girls going, yeah, follow this. I said, no, either you're following me for my channel or get the hell out of here. And then eventually they just vanish, you know. Instagram, I don't even know what I'm doing there. I have yet to create a Facebook page. At one point I had a Threads page, but then I got rid of Threads. So, I might just have to take a step back and look at this and see if there's anything else to do. I mean, shorts are kind of cool because they're there, and they pop up, they just repeat themselves, they're humorous, but we'll see what's there. So, what have I talked about when it comes to the channel besides rambling on about my own personal life and some of my things that just go off on a tangent? So, yeah, I talked about how frustrated I got, especially after I just finally realized that the microphones were never working. It was always the computer microphone I was using. Because I've often wondered why I'm having a trouble with the microphone picking me up, but every other YouTuber I watch has no problem. So I got to figure out how to get the microphone or microphones connected properly. Make sure this one still works after I beat it against my desk in frustration. Um, you know, New episodes are going to come, but I don't think they're going to be on any kind of set schedule. And then there's going to be shorts. So, anyways, I'm close to an hour, but there's not much more I can say. That brings you up to speed about what I'm going through right now. It's like I said, I mean, I missed one episode because I was too busy dealing with my car issues, and then I was going to try to make up for it by putting 2 episodes out, and then I just got extremely frustrated making the other one. I got other ideas. I mean, and there's always going to be ideas of episodes. I just gotta. I think another thing I gotta figure out about is trying to just take more time to make the script and study the script. And for goodness sake, I gotta make sure I can remember at least the opening. I'm trying to like stare at the screen and read and not look down at the script. You've seen that before in previous episodes. And the problem with me is no matter how many times I've said something over and over again, I'm often looking at the script. I do that at work too. My full-time job. I do that at work. It's like I'm trying to read something, but then it's like I can never remember it right off the top of my head because I'm always reading from it as many times as I've read it. So that's how I feel sometimes when I'm reading that opening skit, that opening thing. I'm viewing this anymore as just a way to watch the videos in a whole new light, as I said, instead of just, oh, let's comment on them like we used to. I don't know. But we shall see. We're going to see where everything goes and how this progresses. I mean, even people like, everybody has their problems when they get started with a YouTube channel, or sometimes something happens in their life that causes delays and slowdowns and everything. Just ask Ben Minot what he went through. He had to go through having a he had a father who his father was dementia. That took up most of his day. He was barely able to even put out anything. Maybe the occasional full episode of Oddity Archive, and you know, but now unfortunately, his father has passed on. They've cleaned up the mess there, and now he's back to making the videos. But you want to know something? We, as Oddity Archive fans, or whatever you want to call our fan base, we were there waiting for him. We, you know, and God rest his father's soul. But, it happens to the best of us. But anyways, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I had 6 people watching at the beginning, and they all left at once. It was kind of hilarious. No talking during this as usual. I mean, when you only have 100 people watching, I mean, even like, another one of my favorite YouTubers is Tom Grassi, and even with a million, 800, 900,000 subscribers, a million subscribers, he's had maybe 15 to 30,000 people watching him at once. I mean, that's a short amount of people. So when you only have 100 subscribers, how many people are going to be watching? You would think maybe a few would drop in and actually talk to me, but it happens. It's here for you to watch. And of course, those of you who watch this later, you already know that it's here for you to watch. But I'm going to wrap it up. I'm hungry and I need to go get dinner. You guys have a great day. Ajnot, 3, 2, 1, out.